Hi, everyone. So, this Behind the Prep CodePen Puzzle Edition is to start building out the actual puzzle content. So, we're going to start first in our HTML block. And we're going to start with a question, just a general question that anyone, whether they're a huge science buff, if you will, or somebody who just loves solving puzzles because they love words, or maybe they just like to understand how you can take a subject matter that maybe you don't know a lot about and then figure out what the answers are to that subject matter, or whatever the case is. Let's just start with a very general question. So we've been studying the white blood cells by Dr. Klein, from 1975, and we've been looking at how the information about the metabolic functions differ in 2026. So for this first question, let's just keep it very general. What elements did Dr. Klein discover about the lymphatic cells in 1975? Okay, so we start our puzzle off by coming up with a question. Now, this is a very basic question, even if no one who's looking at this knows who Dr. Klein is or knows anything about lymphatic cells and can't even recall the year 1975. That's not the point. The point is to engage people's interest and want to actually read the question and figure out the answers. So before we start listing out answer options, let's kind of elevate this question and make it stand out. Best way to make anything stand out in any type of code is with design. And so what we're going to do is we're going to use angle brackets. So that's your lesser sign and your greater sign. Those are your angle brackets. And the angle brackets just tell the computer, look, this is the command I'm telling you to do. And in this case, the command that we want is to make the question have an elevated. We want to take it from just basic text and size to a larger text and size and bold it. So that would be header 1. So we put our angle brackets before the word what, and we also put our angle brackets after the question mark. And we come back to the first angle brackets, so it's the lesser and the greater sign. And we're going to use a small h for header. And then the header design that I want to implement for this puzzle question is number 1. Now, just watch for a second. So header 1, you can see on the bottom of my screen, bolded, larger size. But let's say, for example, I wanted it slightly smaller. I could just go to header 2. I could go to header 3. And you see how it keeps getting smaller and smaller. But for this question, I want it to be a larger size. So we're going to stick with header 1. And we're going to leave header 1 only for the question. So we're going to, again, put in the small h and the number 1. But to prevent the header design from going into the second line of code, we're going to take the /, which is right next to the numlock key on your keypad, and that's going to lock it in place. Okay. Now we have to figure out, okay, we have to come up with some answers. We need one answer to be 100% correct or definitely plausible, but we don't want the other answers to be so obvious. So what do? Let's start off with what would be a true answer for this question. So the question is, what elements did Dr. Klein discover about the lymphatic cells in 1975? Well, one thing that is true is that Dr. Klein observed their shapes and sizes under the microscope. Very simple. That is actually true. Now, let's just jump to the third line. What is an answer that is 100% not true that many people might not know off the top of their thinking, but could know, especially if they're even just studying basic biology? Well, Here's one. Dr. Klein found that these cells are responsible for carrying oxygen through the bloodstream. Before we go into why the two lines are merged together and not separated, let's just clarify why line 3 is incorrect. That is incorrect because, as everyone who is any type of med student or biology student or just loves learning about science in general, obviously red blood cells are responsible for carrying oxygen throughout the bloodstream. Now, that's the simple way of putting it. But as far as anything with lymphatic cells, no, it has nothing to do with that. So that should be an automatic no if a person is familiar with red blood cells, hemoglobin. And if they're not, they may decide that that could be the correct answer. Now, I did spell oxygen wrong. I put C instead of X, so I'm going to fix that right here. Now, to get back to the design of this, why are they blended in together? Well, line 2 and line 3 should be separated. But in order to command that, we have to, again, input our angle brackets. So the lesser and the greater sign, lesser and the greater sign. And let's just get this out of the way. Let's put the remaining angle brackets, not just at the front of each line, but also at the end of each line. Now, instead of header, we're going to use P for paragraph, and that's going to start separating out lines 2 and lines 3 from each other. Okay, so if you look at the bottom of my screen, you'll notice that the lines are now separated with a space, and that is due to the command of the P, the paragraph, that we implemented in lines 2 and 3. Now, we are going to, again, use our / just to stop that command for line 2 and to stop that command for line 3. Now, obviously, we want to put more answers, but we're going to make this a shorter video just to kind of have an idea of how design and content work together. So I want us to now go over to the CSS box. So this is really where the different types of like classification and different fonts and the different colors come into play. So for the CSS box, I want the first answer to be blue, and I want that to be the correct answer. And I want the second answer to be red because it's incorrect. So what we're going to do is we're going to come to the CSS box, and we are going to type out answer 1. And we're going to use our curly brackets. And now to have curly brackets, you're going to just press your index finger on the shift key. And then where you have your 2 keys that have brackets, you're going to just press that and the 2 curly brackets will appear. Okay, so we're going to go with color. Now, here's the deal. When it comes to red, blue, black, and white, so black is always going to be zeros. White is always going to be Fs. If we want to create red, it's going to be 2 Fs and then 4 zeros. If we want to create blue, it's going to be 4 zeros and then 2 Fs. And if I got those mixed up, we're about to find out if that's true. Now, one thing I'm going to tell you is that anyone who is a professional coder watching this right now for, whatever reason, obviously there is a step. There are actually 2 more steps that we have to do in the HTML box, but I find it easier just to get the next part out of the way first, and that's putting the information into the CSS block and then going back to the HTML block. And for those that are not professional coders that have no idea what I'm referring to, I just typed out answer 1. If you look at the HTML block, I don't indicate that in words. So that's going to tell you right there, oh, wait a second. If you're commanding and you're commanding your block to highlight the first answer blue and then the second answer red, don't you have to indicate that with words? And you have to indicate that with quotation marks? Yes. So I said before that I wanted the answer 1 to be blue and the answer 2, which is incorrect, about the oxygen, to be red. So for blue, it should be hashtag 1, 2, 3, 4 zeros and then 2 Fs. It should be. Okay. And then we're going to come here. We're going to put /. We're going to have the asterisk, and then we're going to have blue. We're going to close it up with another asterisk, and then we're going to have the / again. Now, we're going to jump back over into the HTML box, and right here, you see where we have the abbreviation for doctor, and then we have that closed angle bracket. So we have to backspace and open it back up. And we have to classify for CSS that this answer 1, is the answer we want to be in blue font. So we open that up. Classification abbreviation is class, =, quotation marks, answer 1, and then closed angle bracket. Now, if you look at the bottom of my screen, you'll notice that Dr. Klein observed their shapes and sizes under the microscope. That is now a blue font. So we know that the zeros and the Fs, the locations of them that we indicated in the CSS block, is correct. That is the correct sequence for blue. And now we are going to change the font color for answer 2. Now we can do one or two things. We can simply copy, go back to our CSS block, and hit Control-C after we highlight line 1, come down to line 2, hit Control-V to paste, and then change the answer 1 to answer 2, change the sequence to have the 2 capitalized Fs in the front, and then go inside the asterisk and change that to red. And then we can then swing back to the HTML block, go to line 3, backspace, open up the angle bracket again. And if we forget, what do we do? How do we put the classification in again? We look up at line 2. So we know that that is the correct command, and we're just changing the font color. So we're going to type class = answer 2, close angle bracket. Actually, we don't need a space there. And now we have red. So what we've done here is we've separated out the correct answer from the incorrect answer.